let's start with the Mishugas that happened this morning, which is all of a sudden Will Levis was getting steamed to go number one based on some Reddit post. I immediately was skeptical about it. It's sort of bounced back a little bit. Do you buy into that at all?
No, I don't. Although, man, Will Levis, he's like the boogeyman of this draft. You know, every time you think you put him behind you, he's in the closet again or under the bed. Like, I thought we were at least done with this first pick stuff.
Me too.
Then now, yeah, and if you look at the first pick, second pick, third pick, fourth pick on the board, the odds, Will Levis is like one of the top two for like every, all four of the picks or whatever. So, yeah, I don't know where he's going, second, third or fourth, somewhere in there, but still be surprised about one. But yeah, that steam was surprising to me too. I had texted about it right when I woke up this morning.
Okay, so let's start at the top. And if the draft is being held right now, and I'm saying, all right, Thor, how's this going to go? I would assume you would say Bryce Young would still go to Carolina at 1. Then what happens?
I have to put Will Levis too, because all this steam. Plus, that Houston likes him, and apparently they're a team that might be interested in moving up. The Colts, I know, like Levis. They're the one team all process I've been told likes Levis, particularly their owner, Jim Irsay. So teams that like Levis behind there, they know they got to hop the Colts, and maybe that's behind some of this trade stuff. But I've had Levis in my mock drafts at 2, and that's where I would stay.
You would stay and you would draft him, which I don't know how.
Not me personally, right. Just in terms of predicting. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if I'm the Texans, I don't see how I would leave this draft without a quarterback, whether that's at 2 or 12 or wherever. So I'm with you there. All right. So then if it is Levis, whether by the Texans or by someone else via trade, then are the Cardinals in the catbird seat and they would be, hey, we're taking all offers, or would they use their pick to draft?
I think they're in the catbird seat then, because that the Colts are taking a quarterback at 4, and so that's the last stop with one of the consensus 4 quarterbacks, really, right? Like if indeed the quarterback is gone at 2, I think that's where that trade market for that third pick picks back up. The better scenario for the Cardinals is the quarterback goes above them to facilitate that trade market opening up. Now, if Will Anderson goes 2, and all of a sudden now there's this scenario where the quarterback, where at least one of those guys could drop beneath the Colts pick, I think that's where it might be a little bit more tepid when they're on the clock. But yeah, that's sort of how I see that. I would bet the quarterback's still there, because I still do think that there'll be a trade on draft night.
So this is really what we're getting at here is, if I could distill this, because people are going to be their heads are exploding, right? So you basically at this point have to decide. You tell me if I'm on something. You kind of have to decide if you feel like it's going quarterback, or you have to decide if it's going to be Bryce Young first, and then it's going to almost be defense quarterback. Isn't that kind of where we are?
That's exactly right. Yeah. And like the impetus for teams like later on, like you have a team like, for instance, the Vikings, the local teams that are back later on that we know have been contacting these teams to talk about a trade up. If you're a team like the Vikings, you would far prefer to trade up. Let's say the scenario where one of those 4 guys gets to 6. Right, with the Lions, the cost of that trade is going to be way less than it would be to get up to number 3, because you won't have to give up your first round pick in 2 years. You're going to have to give up your first rounder next year in either of the trades. But like those teams are hoping and praying that one of those guys gets to 6, but ostensibly for a trade, whatever. Obviously, if the Texans take the quarterback at 2, that's where it heats up, because the quarterback's going 4. So yeah, the trade scenarios, that's where it gets wonky with that.
Okay, so what that makes me want to do is let's just get past the first 4 picks, because we understand that they could go 2 completely different ways, or who knows, even more than 2 if there's trades involved. Then it's just all chaos. Okay, what do we think we absolutely know? So, for instance, I'll give you some examples. I've heard some people say the Seahawks absolutely do not want Jalen Carter. They prefer Will Anderson over Jalen Carter if it came to that. They also kind of like Anthony Richardson because they have the bridge quarterback in Geno, and they could probably, if they wanted to draft Richardson, they would. What do you think? Maybe it's team per player or team to a position. What do you think you absolutely know at this point?
About the Seahawks' intentions?
Not even necessarily them, but just a team on the board where you're like, oh, this team is absolutely doing this.
Well, one of them for me is I know the Raiders like Anthony Richardson. And so if Anthony Richardson were to get down there, I think that they're going to take Anthony Richardson. That would be one of them. The other one is I know that the Colts like Levis. So like, but there's, this is a different kind of a draft where in past years, it's sort of like playing bingo and you get the free spot. In past years, you get at least a couple free
That's
spots
a
when you
great way
started
to
filling
put
out
it.
your mock.
Yeah.
Yeah. This year, you thought you had one, although this morning you wake up and it's like, maybe I don't even have the one. But after that, it's not only that we don't know who the second pick is, we don't know the team that's going to be making the second pick. And you can say that the same for the third pick. And every one of those decisions, it affects every decision after. It's sort of like the butterfly effect.
Yeah.
So that's what makes it so hard to mock this year.
What's so I'm just laughing at myself, right? Because here I am, like complaining about all these bookmakers refusing to book the action, and here I am. Be careful what you wish for, man. What a black hole this has all become. All right, let me ask a couple specific ones. The Aaron Rodgers trade. A lot of the speculation yesterday was, okay, now that Green Bay is going to be at 13, they grab Jackson Smith and Njigba. Do you believe that?
I saw Tony Pauline had reported that, and I respect Tony Pauline. And it would make a ton of sense. Like Smith and Jigba playing next to Christian Watson would be a really good fit because for me, you want Smith and Jigba in the slot next to a guy that's going to force the safety back on that side of the field, open up more intermediate space. We know he dominates with that. That was the jig at Ohio State or whatever. The only thing is, every time you've mocked a wide receiver to the Packers in the first round for the last decade, you have been wrong.
Yes.
So it is this year, 2 days after they trade Aaron Rodgers, now they're finally going to take a wide receiver. I think that would be the funniest thing in the world.
Oh, the beauty of that.
The symmetry, like,
yes.
Would it happen though? Like a final sort of, F you out the door to Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it will happen, but it makes all the sense in the world. It's just the organization never makes that decision, maybe until now.
That would be just beautiful. See you later, Aaron Rodgers. We're going to draft a wideout at 13. Okay, so you got the Vikings hat on. What do you think the Vikings are going to do?
I think they're exploring trades up in the scenario that one of those quarterbacks starts to fall down a little bit. They might be left out in the cold if it goes the first four, although we have heard reports that they've actually engaged the Texans and the Cardinals about 2 and 3. But I think like you either have that, whether, with that one too, you're going to have a side trade worked out with Kirk Cousins. I think we know that they talked to the 49ers at the combine about Kirk Cousins, but if that scenario doesn't work, I think it becomes the opposite where I think they end up trading down from 23. So I think you're either going to see them try a big leap up the board for the quarterback. If that doesn't work out, though, now it gets down to them. They only have 5 picks this entire draft. They don't have a pick in round 2. So I think you would see at that point them trying to trade into the early second round, sort of like they did last year. Maybe not quite as big of a drop down the board, but to pick up ancillary picks on whether it's day 2 or extra picks on day 3.
How far do you think C.J. Stroud drops in this?
I would be really surprised to see him fall beneath 4. But I do think there's a scenario where he gets to 6. With some of these different things. Now that requires that second and third pick, they're both stuck in that slot. They both take defense. Houston taking Will Anderson, Arizona taking, Tyree Wilson or like whatever they do, but stuck in that slot. That's the scenario where potentially Stroud gets to 4 because it requires the Colts. Well, again, I know like Levis taking Levis over Stroud. But I would say, whether it's 4 or 6.
I mean, if someone was betting right now, Thor, what bet would you recommend for them? Over offensive players in the first round?
I would have to look at the odds boards because the odds change so quick in this. Yeah. And like you said, even this morning, like I just wake up and I'm getting texts about, is Levis going number 1? And I'm like, wait, what? And
we all did.
So so I'm taking a look at the odds boards right now.
Let's put it this way. Do you believe 5 quarterbacks are going in the first round?
No,
no, you do not.
No, I think that Hendon Hooker stuff is smoke, and we'll see. I might end up being proven wrong about that. Someone respected with Peter King or somebody had Hendon Hooker in the first round in their thing yesterday, maybe like at the Texans pick. Him or Matt Miller, I forget. But no, like for me, I'll believe it when I see it. Hendon Hooker is not a first round prospect. based on like just historical putting him up against some of these other guys. He also, it's really funny, you know, the S2 test that everyone's begging on Stroud for.
Yeah.
The release S2 test for Hendon Hooker wasn't good either. And Hendon Hooker never had to go to the other side of the field. So I'm not sure why he's not getting, you know, any of the negativity on that CJ Stroud is. I don't think it's fair on either account. But like with Hooker, what you're wondering is you've never seen him go from one side of the field literally to the other side of the field. It just doesn't happen in the Tennessee offense. He also doesn't throw on the run, so he's a dual threat that doesn't do that. We'll have to see, but I'd be surprised.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.